In this video, we're going to cover the bank reconciliation features of LandlordMax. For those of you who aren't familiar with bank reconciliation, it's the ability to match up your accounting entries and your accounting data in the software with your bank statements. To do this, the software provides you with what's called a bank reconciliation status on all your accounting entries. The statuses can be reconciled, which means that you've matched up the accounting entry with a bank statement entry. They can be unreconciled, which means you just haven't done the work yet, you haven't matched them up. And they can be discrepant, which means that there is an issue between the two. So there's a mismatch. So either the amount is incorrect, the date's incorrect, or some kind of mismatch. Now, before we get into the details of how the bank reconciliation feature works and all its functionality, something to note is that it is a completely optional feature. Meaning that for you, if it's not something that you want to use or it's not something that's important, you can ignore it. You can actually hide some of the functionality, but overall you can ignore it. It's completely optional. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to hide some of that functionality if it's not interesting to you. So on the top right of the accounting table, there is a show and hide columns. And what you can do if you click on it, you have the option to show and hide the columns that are of interest to you. In our case, if reconciliation is not of interest, we can just hide it and then it's no longer visible in our table. We can ignore the reports because we won't need them. And when we edit a field, an accounting entry, we can just leave it as unreconciled because by default, all accounting entries are unreconciled. Assuming you're interested in bank reconciliation, after all, you're here watching this video for a reason, we're going to re-enable the feature. In effect, we never really disabled it, we just hid it. So we're going to remake it visible. So we're going to go and select the column and we're going to say show it. Now you'll notice the reconciliations in the first column. The columns can be moved around, so you can actually make it your second or third or fourth column. You can make it wider and so on, but that's for another video. So looking at this specific list of accounting entries, you'll find that some have a green check mark. The green check mark means that you have reconciled the entry. So again, going back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, that means you've matched up that accounting entry with your bank statement. So you've approved it, you've checked it off. A gray dash means that it's unreconciled. And by default, all accounting entries are unreconciled, which means that they just haven't been matched up with an bank statement entry. And if you see a red X, which there's none right now, but we'll come to that very soon, a red X would mean it's discrepant, which means that it's not matching up with your bank statement. Okay, now that we can see the statuses, how do we change them? That is to say, how do we mark an unreconciled entry as reconciled or discrepant and so on? There's a few different ways to do it, and we're going to focus on the core ones in this video. The ones that are probably the most common and the simplest ones. You can edit the status directly in the table. You can use the right menu, or you can go into the entry itself. Our main focus in this video is going to be editing them directly in the table because we view that as the quickest and fastest way to do it. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick step back and talk about data filters and how they can be used to really simplify your life when it comes to bank reconciliation. We're not going to get into all the details of data filters and searching and how you can use them to find specific entries. We have a whole video for that. We're just going to focus on how they can simplify your life for bank reconciliation. Specifically, and the most common use case will be you just received a bank statement of this, let's say this month's bank statement, and you want to reconcile those entries. So the first thing you'll want to do, most likely, is to just remove all the entries that are reconciled. There's no reason for you to see everything. We just want to focus on unreconciled entries. So what we're going to do is go to the filters on the right side. We're going to click on it, and we're going to click on unreconciled. And what that does is it limits the data to just unreconciled entries. I don't need to see all my other entries. I don't need to see everything else. I just want to focus on unreconciled entries. I can limit the data depending to a month or a year and so on. I can add extra filters, but for our example, we're just going to focus on unreconciled. Now, I could also be focusing on discrepant. So now I just want to deal with the entries that are discrepant. I can select that filter. In this case, I'm going to remove everything, remove the filters just for our examples and go back. But generally, filters are very, very helpful for limiting the data. All right, so getting back to reconciliation. The first and easiest option is if you're doing entry by entry, you can just click on an entry, right click, you'll get a pop-up menu, and one of the menu options is reconciliation. And you can change the status directly as unreconciled, reconciled, or discrepant. In our case, we're going to mark this as discrepant, and you'll notice that the entry has been updated, and now we have a red X to say it's discrepant. That's one option. That's the quickest and easy. If you're doing entry by entry, you can do one at a time. If you're going to do multiple entries, so let's say I want to do all these 3, I can select them all, and I can mark the status. I can change those from reconciled to unreconciled in one step. And as you can see, they've all been updated in one step. So the right click option can work on either a single entry or multiple entries. Just remember that if you're doing multiple, to unselect them if you're going to go back to single. So in this case, I'm going to mark this one as unreconciled. I will again mark this one as reconciled, and so on. And you can change the status as much as you want. And just a quick tip before we go into the other ways of showing how to reconcile entries and so on is that if you applied a filter, such as say unreconciled, so you can see what you have to do through your bank statement, and you go ahead and reconcile one of the entries, you'll find that the filter will leave the reconciled entry visible, the action that you just did. And the reason for that is because we know as you're doing things, you want to make sure and confirm that that the action you did, in this case, reconcile entry, actually has happened. And it kind of gives you a list of where you're at. If you want to refresh the filter, you just have to refresh the page. So in this case, I'm going to click the refresh button on the browser and you'll see it's been removed. So just something to be aware of as you go through the different reconciliation actions. But with that being said, we're going to go back to clear all filter. And we're going to unreconcile that entry once again, just to bring it back to where it was. Another option, if you don't want to use the right mouse click, is that you can select the items here, and then you can go click on the right menu where all the other actions are, click reconciliation, and then you can pick a status. In this case, I'm just going to put discrepant so that it applies to all 3, and it does the exact same thing as if I right click. We think using the table is a lot faster because you can just click and it's done. But again, it's completely up to you. Everything is optional. Another option as well is to edit the entry directly. You can either double click on it or you can click on the edit button, and here I can select a different status and I can save it as well, and that will update the status. Lastly, another option is to edit the full entry, and you can do this by either selecting the entry and clicking the edit button on the top right, or you can select it here and click edit and click on the form view. That brings you into the form. It's the full, all the data, and you can actually change the status over here. Normally you wouldn't want to do it this way because it's a little bit lengthier, but if it's a discrepant entry, for example, where you need to add comments, so on, you need to change a lot of information, it might be easier. So just to do a quick recap before we get into the next section, which is reporting, there's multiple ways you can edit the reconciliation status of an accounting entries. You can do a right click, you can edit in the table, you can edit in the form, you can edit with the right menu, and so on. Moving on, the next thing we're going to want to do is run reports on our bank reconciliation status. We may need to run reports on what's been reconciled. Maybe it's on what's not been reconciled, what's unreconciled, because some people will actually still do the old way with paper and pen and highlighter. Maybe we need to have statements of what's discrepant. Maybe we're a property management company and we need to provide to our clients, the landlords. Maybe we're a landlord ourselves running the software and we want to know what's all been done and what's not. And maybe we need a digital format. Maybe we need printed format. Whatever the case may be, we want to run reports on our reconciliation status. So to do this, we're going to go to the reports section. So I'm going to click on reports, and then we're going to go into selecting a report. Something you'll probably notice when you click on the select report to run is that there's quite a bit of reports and you'll have to scroll down a bit. It's because we have about 200 reports. The software has a lot of functionality and features. So just a quick little less known tip is that you can actually search by the name of the report, and see here I've limited it to just reconciliation reports, but we're going to remove that for now and we're going to show the whole list. We're going to go to reconciliation and I'm going to put some backdate data, or a backdate here, so we have some data. And if I generate the report, it's going to show me with a pie chart. You can remove the pie chart by hiding it. So if I don't want that, I can hide it, but I'm going to bring it back. It's going to show me the percentages for revenues for all the different statuses as well as expenses. And then it gives me a list of the accounting entries with their statuses. Now, if I go back to the list of reports, I can run reconciliation reports for just a specific status. So I can say, just show me the discrepant reports. Just show me the unreconciled reports. Some people like to use paper and pen when reconciling. That's another option too. This is actually going to show me a chart. In our case, I'm going to hide the chart because it's not as important. And then I've got a list of all my entries. I can go back in here. I can do run the reconciliation report for a building, for a landlord, for a status specifically. So I can pick the status. I can do a status for a building, for a landlord, for a tenant, for an account. And then I can also group the entries by account for status, by building, by landlord, and so on and so on, and by unit even. There's quite a bit of options. I believe there's a total of 25 different reports. So with that in mind, and to wrap everything up, we've now covered how to run reports on the bank reconciliation status. We've covered how to work with the accounting entries to mark them as reconciled, unreconciled, or discrepant. We've covered how to mark just one at a time, mark multiple at a time, the different ways you can change their status. We've covered how to work with the data filters, specifically for bank reconciliation, how to limit the views, for example, to just the unreconciled entries. So you can work with your bank statement from this month. And we've pretty much covered the core of bank reconciliation. Now, if you want more details and more precise information, we do have the user manual, which will go over it into more with screenshots and so on. But this is a very, very good start, and you should be able to do pretty much everything you need to with bank reconciliation and reconciling your accounting entries with your bank statements.